Welcome back to Deep Things of God, everyone. I'm your host, Alex, and I'm thrilled to be here with my co-hosts, Jordan and Samantha, for another deep dive. Today, we're exploring the incredible journey of Joseph, from favored son to slave, prisoner, and ultimately a ruler who saved nations. This story shows how betrayal can become the pathway to destiny. Jordan, set the stage for us. What makes Joseph's early life so relatable yet dramatic?
Thanks, Alex. Joseph was one of Jacob's 12 sons, born to his beloved wife Rachel in their later years. Jacob openly favored him, giving him that iconic coat of many colors, a symbol of status that fueled massive sibling rivalry. At just 17, Joseph shared dreams where his brothers' sheaves bowed to his, and even the sun, moon, and stars did the same. Instead of inspiring awe, it sparked hatred. His brothers plotted against him while he checked on them in the fields. They stripped him of the coat, threw him into a dry pit, and sold him to Ishmaelite traders for silver. Then they dipped the coat in goat's blood and lied to their father that a wild animal killed him. Heart-wrenching start.
It really is. But Joseph didn't stay defeated. Transported to Egypt, he was bought by Potiphar, a captain in Pharaoh's guard. Even as a slave, Joseph excelled, managing the household so well that Potiphar prospered. That's a key theme. Wherever he went, he brought blessing because he walked with integrity and relied on God. Of course, Potiphar's wife falsely accused him after he refused her advances, leading to prison. Yet even behind bars, Joseph rose to oversee other inmates and used his gift of dream interpretation.
Let's pause on the historical side because this isn't just inspirational fiction. The Genesis account is packed with details that ring true to ancient Egyptian society. During the Second Intermediate Period, Semitic peoples from Canaan, including groups like the Hyksos, gained influence in the Nile Delta. Archaeological finds in places like Avaris show increased Semitic presence with evidence of foreigners rising in administration. Slave prices around that era match the 20 pieces of silver Joseph fetched. Egyptian practices, viziers handling grain during famines, dream interpreters in royal courts, officials receiving signet rings and fine linen, all align closely. While no single inscription screams, "Joseph was here," the cultural authenticity supports it as a grounded narrative within the patriarchal era, preserving the lineage that leads to the Exodus.
Spot on! Egyptologists note how the story reflects real elements like the Nile's role in agriculture, storehouses for surplus grain, and even the 20% tax Joseph later instituted during years of plenty. It fits a time when capable outsiders could ascend if they proved valuable, especially amid crises. This historical texture makes the biblical story more compelling. It's not detached myth, but embedded in the real world of the ancient Near East, showing God's hand in human history.
Moving to modern relevance, Joseph's resilience hits hard in today's world of uncertainty. Picture a young professional betrayed by co-workers or someone facing false accusations online. Joseph could have grown resentful, questioning God after the pit, the slave market, the prison. Instead, he interpreted dreams for fellow prisoners, including Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker. When the cupbearer was restored, he eventually remembered Joseph during Pharaoh's troubling dreams of fat and lean cows, and abundant then, scarce grain. Joseph not only interpreted the coming famine, but proposed a wise plan: store grain now. Pharaoh was so impressed he elevated him to second in command at age 30, after over a decade of hardship.
That's the pivot point. Joseph married, had sons named Manasseh and Ephraim, meaning forgetting his troubles and fruitful in the land of affliction. When famine struck, his brothers came to Egypt for food. He recognized them but tested their character before revealing himself. The emotional reunion is powerful. He wept, forgave, and explained that what they meant for evil, God used for good, to save many lives, including their families. He relocated them to the fertile land of Goshen, ensuring their survival. What a model of reconciliation.
In today's terms, think family estrangements, workplace politics, or even global crises like supply chain disruptions mirroring the famine. Joseph's story teaches that character matters more than circumstances. He resisted temptation with Potiphar's wife, showing self-control that's rare in our instant gratification culture. He worked diligently as if serving God directly. Modern leaders, entrepreneurs, or anyone in a waiting season can draw from this. Prepare in obscurity, steward small responsibilities well, and trust that closed doors might redirect you to bigger purpose.
Absolutely. Another big lesson is perspective on suffering. Joseph told his brothers not to be distressed because God sent him ahead. In our lives, that could mean a layoff leading to a better path, or a health scare deepening faith. It encourages therapy, community support, and spiritual practices during dark times. Joseph prayed and stayed connected to God throughout. Plus, his eventual provision for his aging father Jacob and the whole clan highlights legacy and family restoration, something many of us crave amid busy, divided lives.
Another thing I admire is Joseph's emotional maturity. When his brothers stood before him, he had every opportunity to get revenge. They had stripped away his freedom, his family, and years of his life. Yet instead of responding with bitterness, he chose wisdom. He tested their hearts, not to torture them, but to see whether they had changed. That's a huge difference.
Exactly. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. Joseph still acknowledged the pain. He cried several times during those encounters because the wounds were real. But he refused to let those wounds define his future. That's something our culture desperately needs. We hear a lot about justice, but not nearly enough about reconciliation. And notice something else. Judah, the very brother who suggested selling Joseph, became the one willing to sacrifice himself for Benjamin years later. That shows genuine repentance. God's work wasn't only happening in Joseph's life, it was transforming his brothers too. Sometimes, while we're waiting for God to change our circumstances, He's also changing the people around us. That's a beautiful observation. God wasn't simply restoring one individual, He was restoring an entire family. Through that family would eventually come the nation of Israel, and generations later, the promised Messiah. It's incredible how one person's faithfulness became part of a much bigger story than he could have imagined.
There's also a leadership lesson here. During the 7 years of abundance, Joseph didn't waste the opportunity. He didn't assume the good times would last forever. He planned wisely, stored resources, and prepared for difficult days ahead. That's practical advice for us today, whether it's saving money, investing in relationships, developing skills, or strengthening our faith before life's storms arrive.
I love that. We all experience seasons of plenty and seasons of scarcity. The question is, what are we doing in the seasons of plenty? Are we preparing ourselves spiritually? Are we building healthy habits? Are we encouraging others? Joseph teaches us that wisdom today can become someone else's rescue tomorrow. And let's not forget Joseph's unwavering faith. Throughout Genesis, we never see him taking credit for his gifts. When Pharaoh asked if he could interpret dreams, Joseph immediately replied that the answer belonged to God. Even after becoming one of the most powerful men in Egypt, he remained humble enough to recognize where his wisdom came from. Humility and success don't always go together, but Joseph proves they can. His position never became his identity. His relationship with God remained his foundation. That's a lesson every leader, influencer, business owner, parent, and student can take to heart.
Maybe that's the biggest takeaway from Joseph's life. Your identity isn't determined by your circumstances. You're not defined by the pit, the prison, or even the palace. You're defined by God's purpose for your life. Circumstances change, but God's faithfulness remains constant. What an incredible way to end this discussion. Joseph's life reminds us that delays aren't always denials, setbacks aren't always failures, and closed doors aren't always the end of the story. Sometimes they're simply the chapters God uses to prepare us for something greater. So, wherever you are today, whether you're celebrating a victory or walking through a difficult season, remember Joseph's journey. Keep serving faithfully, keep trusting God, Keep believing that He can weave even painful moments into a story of hope and redemption. Thanks again for joining us on Deep Things of God. If today's conversation inspired you, share this episode with a friend or family member who needs encouragement. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay rooted in faith, keep growing in truth, and remember, God is still writing your story. See you next time.